Everyone. We are back with another Eurythmics podcast. This is number 31, and it's a very special podcast today because we have a bunch of fans joining us, and we're going to be discussing the Rock and Roll Hall of, no, sorry, the Royal Albert Hall performance, Annie Lennox's concert last month to benefit the Circle. We'll also be discussing Dave's concert in New York that same night, and also his concert in Nashville a few weeks ago that was recorded for PBS for his new Dylan covers album. But before all that, I'd like to introduce Mark Stevens, my podcast co-host and good friend. Hi, Mark.
Hello there. How are you? Again,
Mark
30
has a, Mark has a lot to say on this podcast, I think, as do most of you. So this should be very interesting. Um, okay, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? Let's start with Steve.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve Gaylor, and I'm sure you all know I run the Ultimate Eurythmics website, and for my sins, have the Facebook group that many of you are part of. And yeah, it's been a very busy couple of months, actually, all round with various news stories. So it's been keeping me really busy.
Yes. All right. Clem, you want to go next?
Sure.
Only
Hey,
because we're
everybody.
in the order there.
Oh, hey, everybody. I'm Clem Stambaugh. I was at the Nashville show. Wow. I've been a fan since we go back to, I was like 11 years old, I think. But then we go back to the Yahoo group, and that's when I met most of you. And I'm so happy that we're all still together. Here we are. So thanks for having us.
We're a
And
loyal
still
bunch,
alive,
aren't
Clem. Still alive.
Still alive, still above ground, Steve.
we? Yes, well, as Annie says, we're all getting short in time, right? Why
Oh
do I,
my God.
why do I keep bringing that up? Anyhow, Bob, you want to
It's
go?
very depressing.
Cut that out, Rex.
It was very sobering to hear that. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be sober for any of it.
but Bob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey there, Bob McCraney, longtime listener, first time caller. Thanks for having me on the show. I've been a Eurythmics fan since I think Here Comes the Rain Again. I've known some of you guys since MySpace. Yes, we're that old. But it was great to finally meet people in person. And we'll talk about the concert. But thank you for having us on the show today.
Thanks for joining. Ray, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Ray DeJong out of Chicago. Probably would date myself if I were to try and go how far back we've been part of the group. I just remember a lot of the names that we used to see in some of the fanzines from back in the ye olden days, the analog days, and now we see them on the Yahoo groups, and then that transitioned, and here we are today. So rock and roll.
Yeah. Okay, Alan, how are you?
So I'm Alan Thomas and I'm in Atlanta and was delighted to go see the Nashville concert and meet up with people that I've always been seeing on the various groups. I think I've been on the various groups. I swear there was a GeoCities version before it turned into Yahoo, and then of course I've been around since Yahoo and the B-Sides project and all of that fun stuff, and got to see them in New York in '99 thanks to Lynn Foster. So I gotta give her credit. And then I've been a fan since I've discovered them in the Medusa era and just been a fan ever since. So
Oh, wow. Great. Cool.
Oh,
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear from fans who discover them a little later. I'm always fascinated about like what album or what era was it that, got you into them.
Hmm.
So for you, it was Medusa. That's interesting.
That's super.
All right. Well, we may have one more person joining us, Neil Wickens. If he joins, we'll just kind of admit him and start the whole thing. But we can start our discussion now. Let's start talking about Annie's concert in London last month on March 6th at the Royal Albert Hall to benefit the Circle, which of course is her charity that benefits women and girls around the world. Um, Lots of Eurythmics fans flew from all over the world to come to this concert. When Annie Lennox puts on a concert, you go to it these days because, you don't know when the next one's going to be, right? Or if there's going to be another one. And for me personally, it was just amazing to be there with all the fans and see all the love. And I know we're all going to, those of us who are there and those of us who saw it, obviously, everybody's seen it. We'll talk about it, but it was very emotional for me, and I'm sure for all of you too. I heard from most of you about how you almost cried or you did cry and things like that. So yes, I'll be talking about the fact that I cried, but let's let's let somebody else jump in now to start. Royal Albert
Well,
Hall impressions.
I think for me it was just the whole evening, and beforehand, just where we had fans even from just within the UK who'd never met each other before. And this is a constant thing that I love seeing. When we were in Los Angeles for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we have people coming together, meeting each other for the first time, and we create all these online communities that we've been part of for years, and the fanzines, as we were talking about a minute ago. But it's actually that first time face to face, and people don't necessarily sound how you think, or they're taller than you think, and
Mhm.
but they've been friends for years. They've been friends for years and years, and then all of a sudden there they are sitting there right in front of you. And I think we've taken this amazing photograph afterwards as well. There's 50 or 60 of us in that room, and I can name every single person there. Every person is in one of the Facebook groups, and for me, it's beyond the music. It's the community that's created around this, and then the shared love for that experience and that concert, and the memories that we can all share and talk about together.
It's
Yeah,
amazing that the group of fans has been so close for so many years. I mean, we're a loyal bunch of fans, loyal to the band, loyal to each other as well. And I think that's wonderful. Mark, you were going to say something?
well, it was the first time. Bob and I have been friends for years, through this network of music, and but London was the first time we'd met. So for Annie's concert is what finally got us together in the same room. And so that was just incredibly cool. And it was something that we were looking forward to. It was just kind of what Steve was saying, just the getting together with people that you've known but haven't met. Ruth Kirk and I were pen pals from Eurythmics days. And I met her for the first time at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I mean, we were literally, pen pals. You had to actually write a letter, go to the mail, so that's insane. And it's the same thing at the Nashville concert that we're talking about. It's the first time I met Ray. I mean, it's what Steve was saying. I mean, part of the thrill is, for me at this point, is meeting all these people and sharing this experience. I'm not just saying it, but part of that is more fun for me at this point than even the show. The show is great, but I love meeting everybody and for the first time, and actually it's fun. It's wonderful.
I'd love to know if the artists, whichever band, they understand that community part that they create and generate around the work that they do. And I bet they don't understand the power that it has.
Right. I agree with that, Steve. I think maybe, well, they don't see it, it's not a part of their daily lives. Like with us, it is. They might think we're a little obsessive, but hey, we like what we like, right?
Exactly.
Bob?
I'm just going to
I'm
echo
putting
what
you on the
everybody
spot,
says.
Bob.
That's okay. I think there's a power to co-creation. We're singing along in the car. We're singing along at the concert. We're bringing not just our energy to her as a performer. We're bringing our energy to each other in the room and in the meetups and the social media. We're bringing our own energy and co-creating with the artist as this event is happening. And that gives us much more ownership of, if we had all just gotten together and gone and seen artist B, whoever that is, have no idea, we'd just be other people in the room. We're not. We're invested in the career of these two people. We're invested in each other, and we're co-creating the space that gives us so much more energy. And whether Annie or Dave ever understands what that's for us, I hope they do. I hope that they're obviously know what's going on here because they're getting energy off of us as they're singing from the stage and performing. But the energy we're bringing to the event is for us as well. And that's what I appreciate this group and all y'all for is that collaborative community that y'all have helped foster.
Yeah. I think over time, the artists must recognize it, as time goes by and the years go by and they see these loyal fans. And I think Dave and Annie understand that about us. I think they know that. Steve, you mentioned that they were all very thrilled to see that photo of all of us outside.
Yeah.
So that says something right there, That's
Well, Annie did mention in the show that she saw a lot of familiar faces. I don't know who she's talking about necessarily, but she clearly has seen people over the years. Dave recognizes you and all that kind of stuff. And so it is, and I think Bob made me think of it, but it's so amazing at this point, specifically with Sweet Dreams, when she's singing that or Dave's performing it in one of his groups. It's the entire audience at this point. I mean, it's really drowned out what she's singing, in front of it. Just when you watch one of the clips on YouTube from the Royal Albert Hall and she's performing Sweet Dreams, the entire audience, not that that's not happened since 1983, but it's a different thing at this point. It's just, I don't know how she sings it at some point because we're all singing it back to her, much less appropriately, of course, but and probably other songs. But I mean, it's noticeable at this point that this massive wall of singing towards her is fascinating.
That's why they have to wear their earpieces to drown us out.
Yeah, I remember them talking about when they did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and they were talking about all the people who had voted for them, and I think they were really kind of surprised. They were saying, "Well, we had 500,000 votes. We haven't put out a record in 25 years, and there's still all of these people who are huge fans still out there and really engaged with them."
Mm-hmm. Yes, right.
Waiting, people, we're waiting.
We're waiting in vain, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness.
We should also mention, and you did earlier what we were going to talk, but quad March 6th, that was the date of the concert, correct? Annie's that on the other side of the Atlantic was Dave performing in another charity concert with Vanessa Amorosa. Is that right?
Amorosi, yeah.
And performed Sweet Dreams and Here Comes the Rain Again and a charity concert in New York City on both sides of the Atlantic. These two concerts on the same day, and that's a testament to the power of Eurythmics, if nothing else, to the longevity of the music. They may not be together, they may not be recording together, they may not be performing together. That is Dave and Annie, but the music goes on.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get to Dave's show, our impressions of Annie's show, what it meant to us, how we felt when we saw her, songs that we thought were done really well. I just want to say when she first came out, she was so overwhelmed, as we all were, and I'm seeing her on stage and I'm thinking I haven't seen her live in almost 10 years. I think the last time we saw her live was the Nostalgia concert. It was emotional, it was like, just very emotional for me. And it was emotional for her too. And it was emotional for all of us, I'm sure. But I got kind of choked.
I did wonder if her bowing her head before she started was just her to take a moment, because it was probably quite new again for her. Being in front of a whole audience that were there for her. Obviously, she's had big audiences in the last few years when she's been with Joni Mitchell and Brandy Carlisle, but this was her audience. And I did wonder when she walked out whether she just needed to take a moment before she started.
Yeah.
And she was very graceful, wasn't she? With her head bowed, her arms out, and it was just like, oh, okay, I'm here.
And then she threw a comment about, be still my heart and all.
Yes.
Yeah, that made me burst into tears too.
Mm.
Apparently I just burst into tears at the drop of a hat. I'm like Lady Gaga.
But I was thrilled that she started with Dark Road because
Yes.
it's my daughter's favorite Annie Lennox song,
Oh,
and
really?
we'd had a conversation before and said, "Oh, do you think she'll play it?" And I said, "I doubt it.
Yeah.
She's going to be doing a greatest hit set." So, and then she played it. So,
Yeah.
And
that
not
was a
only
real
played it,
surprise.
with it. Yeah.
It's obviously
My partner Dave said before the show, I really wish she would do Dark Road. And that was the first one she did, and it was just like,
the first song.
wow.
Yeah.
I think that is my surprise of the night. One would probably think it's Hosier, but really that she not only that she performed Dark Road, but that she opened with it.
With it. Yeah.
That was such a surprise to me. I probably punched Bob and said, "Oh my God, Dark Road."
Yeah.
Bob, what was your moment there?
When she started with Dark Road, I thought that was a great statement on where we're at, because that was on Songs of Mass Destruction, and obviously it was a trying time when that came out, and we're back in trying times again. So I took it that direction. My favorite song will always be "Here Comes the Rain Again," even though she sat down at the piano and she even acknowledged, "Can you guys still see me?" And I'm thinking, she's talking to me. Oh, she wasn't, but she literally was worried that I could see her, which I'm like, "Annie, I can see you from heaven. It's fine. It's great." But that's my song, and she sat down and played it live, and everything else is just amazing. I did love her lightness in the concert. I took notes here. There was a misstart on which one of the songs was it? She started the song and the rest of the band didn't come in. And then there was another misstep in another song where the backup singers didn't come in with her. Just this little tiny thing. It wasn't dramatic. It was like, it happened, and she just kept going.
Yeah. It was In
And
Love
that
as a
lightness.
Stranger, Bob. It
I'm
was
sorry?
Love as a Stranger.
Yeah,
It was
Love is
Love
a
as a
Stranger.
Stranger.
And she was like
she,
1, 2, 3, 4, and the backup
yeah,
singers were still on 5, 6, 7, 8.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she counted them back in very cleverly without people realizing what was happening. It was very
But
clever.
Yeah.
other artists might have stormed off stage or done, she was just
Yeah.
like, whatever, have fun. I liked that lightness. As she's such a perfectionist as an artist, she can still take the moment.
Yeah. In fact, she
And I love
sang 1, 2, 3 in German at that point. She went Eins, zwei, drei for some reason.
right at the beginning of the song. Yeah.
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 That was something that touched me. And yeah, it was just great.
She sounded fantastic. My wife, Amy, commented on that she thought her vocals were as good as she'd heard in years.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I would as well.
I always think it's amazing when you see some of the behind the scenes stuff before she comes out and sings. There's so much vocal coaching, and she talks about how much she had, like, I know for the one of the last things she did, maybe it was the Grammys, she was talking about how much. I'm like, you need a vocal coach? Really? You are the greatest. But yeah, she's talking about how much she had to rehearse and vocal coach and everything. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
And where we were sitting on the side of the stage was where her coat hook was for all of her different jackets. But when she walked off, when Hosier first came on, she was straight there with her hot lemon drink that she always has. So, she even when she wasn't singing, she was needing to keep her vocal cords warmed.
Yeah. Let's. So if you've not been to these things, I've got the set list so we can tell everyone who's listening to this podcast. It was Dark Road, Little Bird, Walking on Broken Glass, Love is a Stranger, No More I Love Yous, There Must Be an Angel Playing with My Heart, Here Comes the Rain Again, Take Me to Church with Hosier, I Put a Spell on You, Missionary Man, Why, Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves, which ended the set, and of course Encore with Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. But one special moment was There Must Be an Angel, which she performed with her eldest daughter, Lola, who also was part of the three backing singers. And that was just a great moment. And if you've seen any of the videos, you see Annie putting her hand on Lola's face. It was an astonishingly beautiful moment watching Annie watch her daughter sing.
Yeah.
That was very special. And it really, Annie, for the most part, went away from a lot of live performing because she was a mom, in the 90s, and she was dedicated to being mother. And you can tell that in all sorts of things. But a few feet away from her that night and watching her with her daughter, she was beaming. And then Lola did post something later that it was one of the best moments of her life, or something to that. And I'm thrilled they had that moment, that we got that moment. We got to see that, but that they had that too. I think that's really special.
That was a very touching moment, yes. And the way she introduced Lola, everyone, this is Lola, she said, not my daughter, not Lola, just Lola. Like, yeah, we all know who she is. But yeah, I mean, you think back at how private she kept the children's lives when they were young, like especially in the 90s and early 00s. You never saw them. You didn't even see pictures of them. And I think that's a good thing. That was a good thing. They clearly grew up well adjusted. But to see her now, coming out and performing with her and saying this is Lola, it's just it's wonderful to see. Wonderful to see. It's very touching.
And it was nice to have Lola in the spotlight. Obviously, she played at the Nostalgia concert in Los Angeles. She was in the backing singers there. That was the first time, but for her to be center stage with Annie, I think was a very special moment.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that show?
Well, I was really surprised that they recreated the Grammys moment with Hosier. I thought that was a genius touch, actually, and it shows that actually they must have really enjoyed it the first time round, because you wouldn't do it again because it's a spontaneous thing, it's a surprise, it's meant to be that at the Grammys. To recreate that means you really have to want to do that, right? Because Annie could have probably chosen loads of different artists to have done something with on that day, and there was probably a load of them queuing up, knocking on the door saying, yeah, me, I'll do it. But for her to want Hosier to come back and recreate that moment, I think actually says a lot about their relationship together as well.
Right.
Yeah.
The original performance was so well received and so ecstatically received. Remember, she talked about being in a restaurant the next day or something, and people were coming up to her saying, your performance was amazing. And so, yeah, I think she wanted to kind of pay homage to that too. I wish she had done the little like she did with her mouth on the Grammy. I thought that was electrifying when she did that. It could be because they didn't have the right whatever at the time, and they had it this time. But yeah, that was it's great to see.
Yeah, it's funny because apparently Hosier and she were just thrown together by the Grammy producers, and there wasn't really any communication or any, well, who do you want to work with on either side? They just kind of threw them together, and then bam, that was definitively the best performance out of the Grammys that year. And I'm not just saying that as a fan, but you had these two people on stage and they just blew everybody else away with their talent and energy. And then you had these other people who have 18 dancers and huge sets and this huge production, and it doesn't even come close, and it's just these two people in their element just absolutely destroying it. So yeah, I'm so glad that she did that again. So glad they did that again.
Yeah,
I want to give him props for being brave enough to come back, because at the Grammys, he's what in singing we call park and bark. He stands at the microphone, he does his gig, and that's it. He can't hit the high note on that, the one little part, and he just kind of doesn't sing that high note. And then he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, Annie Lennox," and she walks out and she starts getting into this. She stole the song right out from under him. It was great. Her energy just took it and ran with it at the Grammys. And I mean, I loved it. And he came back and did it. And I think he's the only male on the concert stage that night. And I just applaud him for one, coming back and singing with him and singing with her and being there and in support of feminism. I was like, I wasn't a huge fan other than that combination of two songs, but now I'm like, yeah, I got you. We're good.
Definitely Hosier over Sting.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think also the success of the night was actually the incredible band that Mike Stevens had brought together for the evening. So obviously Annie's worked with Mike as her musical director for many, many, many years now. But you know, he's so well connected that, you know, we had people like Lee Pomeroy, who was on bass guitar, and he's currently in you know, he's in ELO, has worked with Take That, has worked with Chris Braid, who used to work with Dave Stewart. You had Richard Cardwell, who has worked with Brian Ferry and James Blunt, James Morrison. You know, all these guys are big hitters, and the drummer Don Hepburn, again, he works with ELO, and Adele and Robbie Williams, Alicia Dixon. You know, all these people to be able to say, "Yeah, we're free for a day." You know, we'll drop our diaries and our commitments to play for as Annie's band for a single show. I think it's testament to the power of the relationship Annie has with Mike as well.
Yeah, she's had a really long, strong relationship with Mike, and it shows. And I think really strong and close relationship, I think.
Well, he is the musical director for Take That. He is in 10cc at the moment, and he is in ELO. So, you know, he's obviously highly respected in the industry. And you know, he obviously is able to then pull those favors in when he needs them for an event.
Mm-hmm. Do you think she'll do this concert again? Will this be an thing? Anybody think so?
Mark, it was advertised as the inaugural
Exactly.
Sisters event.
I think she will, because she saw what a great fundraising tool it was for the Circle. You know, so she's making fans happy by performing and also raising money for the Circle. Which, let's talk about the Circle just for a second. The Circle is on a mission to economically empower women and girls and end the pandemic of violence they face by funding and supporting frontline grassroots organizations in some of the world's most vulnerable countries. They advocate for long-term structural change and use their collective voices and those with lived experience to strive for change. Global feminism is their guiding light. So you can go to thecircle.org. No, is it circle.org.na?
No, it sounds right.
Yeah.
I think it's circle.org, yeah.
Yeah.
Check.
If you want to find out more or donate or whatever, there's also merchandise you can buy. Some of the merchandise was on sale at the show as well.
You can join. You remember, aren't you, Rex?
Yes, yes. You can donate. You can donate monthly. I have it. It's set up that I donate monthly automatically, just a small amount, you know. But at the end of the year, it's a nice little sum, and so you can do that.
The web address is now thecircle.ngo.
Yes, that's it. Circle.ngo. Thank you. Thanks, Bob, for doing that.
You do get a sense that sometimes Annie's surprised, or she says she is, and she genuinely looks like she is. That, you know, when people will come out in droves to see her, you know, and I think someone asked her on a news program, like, well, why didn't you do 2 nights or whatever? And she said, well, you know, if we had known, maybe we would have. You know, you want to say, yeah, you could have done 7 nights. It filled the place up. But, you know, you also want to make sure it's done right. So, yeah, you can't get better than that. So I'm hoping she will do it. I don't know that I can afford to fly to London every year, but
maybe she'll do one in New York or LA.
Well, you know,
yeah,
she could take the Circle abroad, you know, and bring it into New York or Los Angeles.
Right.
Well, you know, Chicago is in between the two. She could stop along with
exactly. Well, Chicago is a stop, isn't it? Usually, New York, Chicago, LA. So yeah, Bray, you may get, but
I'll start my petition.
well, so, but that actually would be that would be smart on their part to take it to different places. So
I have a feeling we'll see this again. Like Steve said, it was the inaugural event.
mm,
So maybe in another year or so, we'll see what happens. But
I don't know.
unless anybody has anything else they want to say about Royal Albert Hall, we can move to Dave's performance in Nashville um, for his album Dave Does Dylan, a bunch of acoustic Bob Dylan covers. We all know Dave is a huge Dylan fan. And the album came out yesterday on vinyl for Record Store Day.
There it is.
And there it is. Yes. Yeah.
Mine's
And
on its way. Clem went out and got me a copy, and it's my local.
I did. I braved. Ray, it must have been, I was thinking about that. You were talking about being in the cold. Ben dropped me on the curb. I had just devoured 2 donuts. And so I had donuts in my mustache. I was telling Mark about this. I had a coconut cream donut in my mustache. I'm on the curb with, I don't know, I had no idea, for 2 hours, you guys. And we started, and I looked over at the screen on the car. What's it called? On the not the windshield, but the dashboard. And so I'm like 32 degrees, and plop, I'm out on the street. Mark goes, so did Ben wait for you? I'm like, no, he went home. So I'm standing there. And of course, if you do know me, I'm saying nothing to anyone, right? So I'm just sort of sitting with my head down listening, because I'm a writer and I listen. So I'm hearing all these great conversations going on around me and thinking, oh my God, I have coconut cream crap in my mustache. People probably think I'm bananas. But 2 hours I waited to get in. And then it was another hour, because this is a record store that I have gone to since college. So since 1988 at the University of Kentucky, a record store was originally called Cut Corner, and now it's called CD Central, ironically enough, but they sell a hell of a lot of vinyl. So another hour inside, which of course I loved because I'm looking at all these records. But anyway, another hour inside because 2 registers, one of them died after 3 transactions, and it's record store day. And I asked the guy that I've seen there for 20 years or however long it's been. Yeah, is that longer than 20 years? 30, almost 30 years, I guess. Is that right? Longer than 30 years. Hell, I can't do math. 1988 to 2025, a hell of a long time. I'm like, oh my God, is this a big day? And he goes, this has been huge. So it's been a huge day for them. But yes, I think the thing is about the Nashville concert that struck me, I couldn't believe, and I said this on social media, Dave Stewart treated those songs of Dylan like his children. There was so much reverence for what he was doing. And I kept thinking about these American singer-songwriters, people like Pete Seeger and Jim Croce and Arlo Guthrie and Joan Baez, and then Canadian singer-songwriters like Gordon Lightfoot and Leonard Cohen. And I thought, this is exactly the mature Dave that I want to see. I loved being in that atmosphere with him. It was a small room, and it was
tiny.
It was perfect, and it was so perfect for those songs because he brought such intimacy to not only did the space bring that, but Dave brought that. And you guys mentioned about Annie being loose, being more laid back on stage, and maybe something that at the height of Eurythmics her head may have blown off. But instead, she laughed and she moved along and she spoke in German and brought the band in and whatever she did. Dave had that same kind of thing. There were these wonderful asides, and he was telling stories. And for me, it was a magical evening. And I had never seen Dave Stewart by himself like this. So this was a real treat, and it was so much fun. Mark talked about this, but I keep thinking about it was so much fun hanging out with you guys, and I miss Inez is not with us. If you guys don't know Inez from the group, you should definitely get to know Inez, and she was a joy to be with. And Ray and Alan and Mark and my spouse Ben was with us. I tried to get Ben to sit beside me and join the conversation, and he declined. But Ben was going in not quite sure what to think because I'll be honest with you, Ben is not a Bob Dylan fan. and he wasn't quite sure what to expect, but Dave totally won him over, and he talked about Dave for like, I don't know, 2 hours on the drive home from Nashville to Lexington. So it was a beautiful evening for me. Beautiful weekend. It was just great. There was so much energy. It was so good. So good. And meeting him afterwards was so much fun.
I think
Oh God,
the
we got some great pictures and video of that. It was so much fun. And look, I stole the set list off of the stage because nobody seemed to be claiming it. And Steve, I am going to scan this in
yes,
and send
please.
it to you. And I managed to steal the sheet music from the show. So this is hey, they were leaving it up there. I was like, this is probably going to go in the trash. This is a
I,
one-time
I,
only
re- I,
event.
re- I remember when you did that. You came back from the piano. I'm like, look.
It was fantastic, Alan. You gave me this look of what the hell? And up on stage you go, and you're just gathering all this stuff up, and it was just magical. I'm like, what is he doing? And then you came like, it's prizes. It was great. Ben absolutely was blown away by the piano player. What was so wonderful, you guys? You could tell that these were definitely seasoned performers who played with Dave many times. Dave mentioned, and I wanted to pick your guys' brain about this, and Steve, you may have an insight into this because he mentioned that Dave at one point brought on a quartet, an all-female
Yeah.
quartet, and he mentioned that one of them was, I want to say, the conductor for something that took place in London, but I didn't catch if it was
Oh, okay.
Eurythmics
It,
or
it,
was it?
it
Help
was
me, Mark. Are you coming in?
what he said, and realized what it was. When Dave had a concert at the
Tower of London.
Tower of London, and he mentioned that he had conducted the strings for that.
Okay.
I didn't know that, but it's a good point that you brought up. Dave's new album, the Dylan covers album, is all acoustic. You've read this about it if you don't know this, but he recorded the songs just over the last year or so, just literally, and he talked about this in the concert, on his iPhone. What you're hearing on his album is literally what he recorded, just himself with his guitar, recording, singing into his iPhone. But for the concert, he had musicians and the four strings, and it was absolutely beautiful. Really, I'm so anxious to have both versions of this. His acoustic version, and then when the analog, it's called recorded live at Analog, so that will be on PBS. But it's so great that we're going to have both versions of these songs. So he performed all 14 songs that are on the new album, not in the same order, but all 14 songs. And we were talking, some of you were talking earlier about being moved to tears during Annie's concert. Well, I can tell you for sure, there are not just the fans the 5 fans that we've been talking about. There are a lot of people in tears during parts of Dave's performance as well. And I think it's a great testament to the immediacy of his concert that night. Dave can also move people to tears, and he did. It was a great show. Ray may want to talk about that. I don't know if you were one of them, Ray, but
I think I was so it was such an emotional thing, and I'll tell you just a little backstory. When my parents they came to the States in the late 60s, and they, from the Netherlands, and they really just kind of wanted to fit in. And my dad picked up very early on, like some of the folk music that was so popular at the time, like Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, things like that. And Bob Dylan was one of them. And so my father plays the guitar and my mom sings, and they would sit around the house playing Bob Dylan songs. And we as kids singing along, because like kids do, to Bob Dylan. But we were too young to really put them, to understand what the songs were about, other than the fact that that's what we just grew up hearing. And as my parents have gotten older, they've lost a lot of their ability. I think my mom deals with early onset Alzheimer's, and my dad has arthritis. He can't play the guitar anymore. but these songs have always had a real special place for us. And so, um, my favorite Dylan song was Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. And I remember seeing Dave post the video of that, and I thought, oh my God, there needs to be an album of this. And I know I commented a whole bunch of times on this, like, you need to put an album of this out. And I know I'm not the only one. So I know that happened. And at the concert, it was just, it was just such a beautiful and intimate performance. I know there were a number of times where you could feel the audience just welling up with emotion. I know when he did Make You Feel My Love, like that was, I know my sister was crying next to me. Such a fantastic performance. And I think when he started doing Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, I think I just felt like this is pure bliss, right? He does such a fantastic job with these Dylan songs that they are really kind of his own. And you recognize, like, here he is paying tribute to someone that he grew up listening to. And, I think I'm a little bit of a guitar player myself. And the reason I did is because I wanted to play Eurythmics songs on the guitar. And so, you think it's just like, oh, he kind of gets where that comes from. Yeah, it was really incredible night. I think we had such a great time meeting everyone that we got to meet. I mean, it was a small group of us, but we had just a drink or so at the bar beforehand, and then the little whiskey reception for the VIP folks, which was us after all. Let's just admit it, we're VIPs. But then to get these fantastic seats, we're like right up front. You cannot get closer. And it was just, it was fantastic because you kind of forget that there's people behind you. I think the audience was just dead silent because they were so transfixed on what was going on that stage. And I knew that there was the piano player and the steel guitar player were there, but when that string quartet came out, it was like, oh, where did that come from? Yeah, it was a really fantastic night. And I don't know how you pulled it off, Mark, but talking to the manager and getting us all to that little reception afterwards, and
So sweet. That was so sweet to take us with you. Yes, it was wonderful.
Yes.
you could have left us there. We appreciate you bringing us with. But and then Dave takes the time to talk to us, and you never got the sense that he was wishing that we would leave. You got the sense that he was really happy to meet us. We got to talk to him, just chat with him, and I think Mark, we played it right. I think we played it right when we said this is the good time for us to go before we want to overstay our welcome and become an annoyance. And then we just all went down to the hotel bar and we just had drinks and talked and until they closed, and then they threw us out. And it was just like a perfect night. I could not have asked for anything better. So, yeah.
I have to tell you, Ray, and hearing you talk about this, I shared this with Mark, and Ben said, "What did you say to him?" So I put my arm around Dave Stewart, and in my finest Southern, I said, "Have we just about worn you out, honey?" And he cracked up, looks me right in the eye, and goes, "Not quite yet." And we took a picture. So that was magic. Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing that Ray and Mark were talking about. Like, we don't want to wear him out. There were a lot of people in the room. They were surrounding him. And it all felt so natural, though, and so wonderful. And, I think it's interesting, Rex. We started out with talking about, you mentioned how ephemeral, you didn't use the word ephemeral, but it's one of my favorite words as the poet, the writer. And it is so brief, the time that we have together. And I think a lot of what we're getting to experience, and I don't want to get too gushy sentimental because I too will cry, but I think one of the greatest things that we're getting to experience as fans of these people, we're getting to see them now in their maturity, and we are with them. We are right there with them. We got the gray hairs and the whiskers and the lines and I think that's part of the beauty and the longevity of Eurythmics, of Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart, And when I got that moment, that hit me watching Dave Stewart there on stage, and it's magic. It's
Yeah.
magic. They still have so much to give. And I think, I'm one of those people who I get a little exhausted with comments sometimes that are made in the group about trying to push someone to do something. That's just not how this works, folks. It just doesn't work that way. So
Mm.
don't try to push anyone to do something. Don't
Yeah.
I'm sure it's all going to come in their time and when they want to do this. And we talked about, I hope Annie will, I hope and hope that she will make the circle something that she does. Steve, I'm so glad you said the inaugural. So I'm hoping that she will bring that, because I think it's something that's all in the back of our minds. Like,
Yeah.
you can make so much money for your causes. I don't even know, is sing still a thing? I don't even know.
Sing sort of essentially migrated into the circle.
The circle. That's what I
It,
had
it
assumed would
that that
happen.
that's the journey sort of took it that direction.
Sure, sure. It's interesting we mentioned the circle. Years ago, and Bob talked about this, years ago when we migrated from Yahoo to MySpace. And then I didn't migrate with y'all. Bob, there's a y'all for you. Mwah. I
Mm.
heard your y'alls earlier, and it made my little old southern heart just beat a little faster. But I didn't migrate to Facebook with y'all. But on MySpace, when Annie first started talking about the circle, she actually responded to me in a chit chat we were having back and forth, because I was a little the tone that she had written on MySpace felt a bit like, "Hey guys, you're excluded." And I'm like, well, just because I have male genitalia, and just because, that doesn't mean that I can't too be a feminist. And she, in her way, said, "Gee, I'm sorry.
Mm.
That of course you can, and of course you are, and of course we're happy to have you." And that was one of those great moments. That's why I miss MySpace so much, because it's a totally different game, I think, on Facebook. MySpace felt much more personal, and like we were probably really in a room, even though I know she had her fairies. I think she called them the fairies. Um, who knows how many fairies it takes to keep up with what we're seeing
Her,
now? A bunch. Is
her
it
pixies. They're called her pixies. Her web
fairies?
pixies.
Or
Mhm.
Yes.
not fairies. Leave it up to me to call it the fairies. So her pixie. Yes, much more PC. Thank you, Steve. But I don't know how they do what they do. I really don't.
Mm.
And it's incredible to see it, like on social media even.
Yeah.
I just keep hoping. I love to see how Dave is sharing so much with people he's working with, and I'd love to see that with Annie as well. We've seen Ben and I have been fortunate enough to see Brandy Carlisle a few times, and I thought I thought that's who you guys were going to have in London. I had assumed Brandy
Um,
Carlisle would come out
I thought so
Unfortunately,
too.
Brandy's been very busy with doing
with
her
Elton
TV specials with
John.
Elton John in
Yes,
London. So I think that would have been the wish list, but I think
yeah.
decisions were being made elsewhere, I reckon.
Steve,
um,
you were thinking the same thing, that
well,
probably Brandy Carlisle?
I was thinking that it would be Brandy, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think a lot of people in the UK really know Brandy Carlisle yet.
Ah, okay,
So
They
okay.
make out, yeah.
it perhaps wouldn't have had the impact of her coming on stage. I don't know.
Sure,
I could
sure.
be wrong, but she's a newcomer over here. She's sort of
Yeah,
getting into the charts now because of Elton John, not because it's Brandy Carlisle.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, the new album, "Who Believes in Angels" or
Yeah.
something like that. We've also seen Hosier. I don't even know. I want to say 4 or 5 times at this point. It's funny how Bob described him, which is spot on. Um, but he doesn't really have to do a whole lot when you're 7 feet tall and you have this big
Yeah.
mop of hair, and you have
Yeah.
these gorgeous, uh, back to these gorgeous story songs that singer songwriters do for us.
Mm.
So it was so natural, I think, too, to see the two of them come back together again. It felt so right because, like Alan mentioned, I remember reading the same thing. The Grammy people threw Hozier and Annie Lennox together, and I think it was that 2014, 2015 at the 2015 Grammys, because Nostalgia had just had a big splash. Number one on American Jazz and top 10 on the album chart. I think that was an album that Annie probably never dreamed that it would do what it did. And then we got to see her back on the Hot 100 after that performance with Spell on You.
The single that I put a spell on you, of course, was in 50 Shades of Grey, which was at the same time. So the song was getting big exposure there as well.
Right. Christian Grey, I think it is the character.
Listen, I thought I'd share something with you all, because after I'd seen that you'd managed to meet up with Dave, I did send him a WhatsApp message, and he did reply to me. So I'm just going to read it out. I just said, looks like you had fun, Dave. You made a lot of peeps very happy with your kindness after the show. I said, you make positive ripples wherever you go. And he just sent a picture back of him playing the guitar, and then another picture of a martini, and then a tired face.
Well, if anyone doubts what we're saying, I think we all stayed about 5 minutes up there or something like that. We just sort of knew, and we didn't. We knew we had been given something quite special. The longest time was for Dave to figure out how to. Alan had brought a special pen.
Yes, he couldn't use my pen. I wanted him to sign my book, and he tried, and he's like, "Damn, no, the pen doesn't write. It's a fountain pen." So
that was
manage that. I wanted to talk a little bit about how the song list and everything progressed, because he started off with him just acoustic on stage, which I have to say that. Like, his singing his singing and playing may not have been quite stadium volume or stadium presence, but it was way bigger than the room that he was in. It was at least small theater or auditorium size. So, you were just there and just overwhelmed by the quality and quantity of the playing and the singing. And then he kept adding different elements. He added the piano, he added the steel guitar, he added the string quartet. Towards the end, I think he added like a harmonica player. And he said, it was a really interesting combination of people who had been with him for a very long time and done the tours in Europe and done this and set up his studio. And then he added this guy who I think he said he had played with Willie Nelson, and David met him 3 days ago and said, "Okay, you come on stage with me." So, a great combination of rehearsed and spontaneous, which I think gives you a good insight into what his character and methodology. There's structure, and then there's madness and spontaneity to go with it too.
And that is the epitome of Dave Stewart, and that's the stuff that we fell in with. Whenever it was, if it was, 20 years ago, 30 years, 40 years ago. And Dave brings that magic to everything. And I think that's why that Nashville show was just, if you're listening to this and you think, oh, I don't know if I want to go to just a Dave Stewart show, we are here to tell you, you really, if you have the opportunity at some point, don't miss it. There's magic in it. I'm telling you, there is. You mentioned the gentleman that came on at the end, and it's Mickey Raphael, and he is a celebrated player. It is one of those Dave Stewart moments. He saw Dave and his wife having dinner at a Nashville restaurant a few days before the concert, and he went up to him and said, "Are you Dave Stewart?" And he did say something. He did explain this at the concert, a little bit funny. He literally had looked up, how you can look up on Google now? And so he was checking to see, okay, Dave's tattoos. And so he was confirming by Google or whatever, that he had. Right. So he went up to him and said, are you Dave Stewart? And they got to talking, and Dave somehow, and Dave explained a lot of this in the concert, and he said, well, are you a musician? And he said, well, yeah, I've been playing for Willie Nelson for 50 years. And he just, 3 days later or something, he brings him on stage with him. And he, of course, was incredible because he is an incredible musician. And that was just the joy of that night. It was that Ray and Alan and Clem already talked about it. It was to me, it was just as great a show as Annie's show in London, in totally different ways, of course.
Totally different.
But it was,
I think
you'd left on a huge high on both nights. If you know, I think I'm the only one here that was at both. But I just left with that. There was so much joy, so much happiness in that, and it was about the music and what they both could bring to it, and it was wonderful.
So now, when does this airs in July on PBS?
July, I think, sometime in the summer, but I don't think they've given it an exact date yet.
That's what I've read too. Sometime in the summer, most likely.
I think you've made us all very eager to see this after the description of it.
I'm eager to see it that side. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think until you see have the opportunity to see Dave Stewart perform in that way that you guys did, you begin to understand the artistry that he brought to Eurythmics.
Exactly.
And it goes back to something that I've heard him say many times before, that every single song that Annie and Dave have ever written together should be able to be performed acoustically in a small room.
Yeah.
And when you get to see these moments, and I've been lucky to see both of them in that type of setting, very, with Annie as close to you as Dave was, you see the power and the skill that they have in bringing something different to that size room and being able to deliver an intimate concert is, I think, because they can see everyone in those smaller venues, they can really see everyone. They can actually probably, hear you breathing because you're that close to them. It's a very different vibe that they have to deal with. But the times where I've seen those have actually been my favorite moments. And seeing Dave play his blue Takamine guitar, which Lily Was Here was recorded on, for me is just one of the most spine-tingling experiences I've ever had, where he was sat just a few foot away from me performing. So I'm really glad that more people have been able to experience that, because I think it does show that Eurythmics wouldn't have been what they were without Dave's skill.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Steve, I think you're going to, you've just prompted a memory in my head. You're going to enjoy seeing the recording, the video, because talking about Dave and the guitars, he actually has a great time with the young man who brings him the fresh guitars. Jesse. To plug them in. And yeah, there's so much. At one point, Dave actually he dropped an F-bomb or two and was joking about, were they going to be able to edit out, I think, some of the language, because he was just having fun and just talking to us. And I think someone else mentioned this. I don't know if it was Alan or Ray or I think he was really soaking up the warm energy that we were sending him, because it just felt, it truly, the space we were in, this club, Analog, the idea is to feel like maybe we're in your living room. Ginormous living room, but a room nonetheless. And it reminds me of a space, we love Franz Ferdinand, and we're seeing them again in September in a space in Louisville, Kentucky, called the Mercury Ballroom. And it has that same kind of, there's an intimacy to it, and you are so near and able to really experience the show with him. And that's how this felt with Dave. I'm curious if anyone knows, is there a possibility you think we'll get to see the Annie show maybe put out on any kind of broadcast?
Well, there were signs everywhere saying to people that the show was being recorded. So people were aware as they walked into the Albert Hall. There were signs on the door saying that this show is being recorded. For what purpose, and whether it's good enough to pass Annie's quality checks, we don't know. But
sure, understand that.
The fact it's been recorded gives us hope.
We're almost to an hour here, but there's a couple of things I wanted to circle back on. Clem, I wanted to talk about what you said about how it's not right to ask them to do things for us, like you were saying.
Sure.
In other words, they don't owe us anything.
I firmly believe that, Rex. I do. Right. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, and we tend to forget that, musicians are people too. They maybe want to retire. Maybe they don't want to work for the rest of their lives. Yeah, the arts is different. You continue to want to be artistic. That doesn't mean maybe you'll retire permanently, but
Yeah.
the thought of retiring should not be anathema to people like that, or we shouldn't think of it that way. They deserve to retire and to
Yeah.
relax and rest.
They don't owe us anything.
No, they don't. They don't owe
No,
us a
No.
thing. They've given us plenty. And, people say to Annie, why don't you put out a new record? She says, well, I have a huge catalog. It's like, it's
Mm.
true. There's a huge catalog out there.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think I
questions,
think the song I think the song I Want It All was actually written around this, Rex.
yes,
Ah,
well, exactly.
You
That's
know,
great.
I want it all. I don't care what it is. I want it now. All of that stuff.
I don't know
Give
what
me
it
more
is,
of the
right?
same old stuff. That song I think was very much written about that demand on both of them to just
Exactly.
constantly be churning stuff out.
Great song too. And then Ray, I
Mhm.
wanted to mention, I loved your comments about growing up and listening to your parents singing
yes.
and playing the guitar and all that. That's very touching. I think we all know that what we're exposed to in childhood is what sort of we go to later in life. Sometimes we go to it a lot later in life than, like, for instance, country music. I was exposed to that as a child, didn't listen to it as a young adult. Now I listen to it all the time,
Mhm.
along with everything else. So, what you're exposed to as a child informs your life later. And I just think that for you to have parents singing Bob Dylan acoustically in your house in front of you was amazing. I'm a little jealous. I wish my parents did that in front of me.
we were very lucky. Our parents have always been very musical, and they passed it on to us. And I think I'm sure, I think on Facebook or Instagram, I think even have a couple clips of myself playing "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right" on the guitar if you scroll far back.
And,
But
and to be exposed to that music and those lyrics at such a young age is,
we had no
it's
idea.
like you had great teachers. You had great teachers.
We did, and it was so. It really felt very much like a homecoming to hear Dave Stewart singing those same songs again. And I know I that is a night I never ever forget.
I have no exposure to Bob Dylan, honestly, before this. And my attitude was pretty much the best part of Bob Dylan is when he does not sing. So maybe his music is good, but the Bob Dylan singing, I can live without. And here I had the chance. So this was my first time experiencing any of this, really. And it was just mind blowing. I wish that Dave had sung a few, thrown in maybe a little bit pre-performance or in the middle somewhere. Or let's throw in some Eurythmics songs, or let's throw in a couple of his own songs. But very happy with what actually happened.
Yeah.
That's so funny, Alan. Oh my God. That's great.
Well, we're over an hour now. If anybody wants to do any kind of wrap up little comment or anything like that before we kind of close out.
The only thing I want to add, I have been listening nonstop to the new album since it came out yesterday, and I'm probably going to wear it out. And I know it's very early in the year still, but I don't think I've heard an album that I've gotten more satisfaction out of in a
Oh,
few years.
wow.
And so I'm already ranking this one up for my album of the year. I know we have a few years, we've got a long way to go before the end of the year, but I don't think I've been more satisfied with an album in a very long time. So
I'm
hopefully
getting my copy today. I can't wait to open it up and listen to it.
Good.
it'll be
I
available
was
digitally in July, apparently. So when it comes out digitally, for those of you who don't get it on vinyl, get it.
Thank
We
you
got
for
some
saying, Ray. That's what I was getting ready to say as well. That I'm assuming that's to coincide with the PBS special airing that they're going to make it available digitally. So I have to admit, I do play vinyl. I have a lot of it, but I do prefer the instantaneous hit that download button, baby.
Yeah.
And yeah, much more portable.
Yeah, definitely.
And I couldn't resist, but I thought, here we go. There's the picture.
Ah!
Oh, there it is.
It's a beauty, huh? I can't wait to get mine in my hands. You UK people are so lucky.
I will hunt down and
and and there's a nice little download code for it as well. So there's a
Oh,
nice little insert for that. And
If you're
yeah,
listening to just the audio version of this podcast, there's one on YouTube. There's just an audio. Steve has just shown us the Be Yourself Tonight picture disc, which debuted yesterday at Record Store Day in everywhere in the world except apparently the US.
And there was actually a third Dave Stewart release yesterday for Record Store Day that was went under the radar a little bit, and this is the Dayglow Shakespeare Sister 12-inch for Black Sky that Dave Stewart co-wrote with Siobhan and Marcella.
And then he had a track on
Bootsy Collins.
But he's got 3 tracks.
Three tracks.
On Bootsy. Yeah, The Influencers, Alien, Flytrap, and another skips my mind.
So,
and let's not forget the yellow vinyl of 1984 coming in a few weeks.
Couple of weeks' time.
Apparently, they won't ship it to the United States. I tried that.
Yeah, they will not.
And
it's the tariffs. It's the tariffs. Yeah.
No T word. No T word.
Nobody brought up Allison Russell and Super Lover.
Yeah.
Annie, okay, so and I didn't get to attend the Dave Stewart concert, and I'm really chapped that I didn't go, but I'm looking to see if he's coming anywhere nearby. Annie is, my perception is a little more distant. We would never have the interaction with Annie. I don't perceive that you guys got with Dave. If we did, I'd just fall over dead. It'd be over. But Annie is dropping music from time to time and appearing in these shows with different artists and doing different things as she feels she's ready to do. Dave is going to tour till he drops, from what I understand. That's just the difference in their personalities, and I just love that. I want to echo what Clem and I think Rex also said. They don't owe us a damn thing. What they give us is in the performance. And I remember back in the MySpace days when Annie was a little more conversational with us, or her fairies or her minions or whoever. And I felt more connected at the time because of that. Oh my God, they actually know who. I remember the one day Whoopi Goldberg liked a tweet. I did. I was on cloud 9. Whoopi Goldberg knew who I was for a split second. I think they don't owe us anything. And to sit on the front row and have her just visually had to see us. I mean, those of us who are in the front 2 or 3 rows, she had to have at least seen us in the peripheral. That's enough. That's
magic.
Enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll say to you, Bob, that Sammy Andrews, who put the show together for Annie, it was Sammy's idea to say, shall we do something? And Sammy it was her first event that she has managed like this for Annie.
Thank you, Sammy.
And she commented, because she was actually sat just on the side of the stage, and she watched you and Mark for the whole show, and she just loved your reactions to the whole show. So you were seen.
I think we acted appropriately too.
You didn't hurl yourself onto the stage or anything.
No.
He was holding me back. Mark was holding me back the whole time.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw him holding you back.
No, but the great thing, if you don't know this, Bob was in a fantastic red sequined jacket, and so later that night, we were probably 1 o'clock in the morning. We were starving, and we were trying to find something to eat. We'd gone back to the hotels, and the bars and the restaurants were shutting down by the time we got there. And so we're walking around London trying to find something to eat. I don't make this up. 3 different people doing the same thing, I suppose, stopped us at one point and said, "You were the 2 guys up front," because they recognized Bob's red jacket.
Very smart, Bob. Very smart.
Very hard to miss.
I am in marketing. I'm sure they thought we were a couple, Yeah, it was great.
Well, you were for like 2 hours.
We went to 4 different restaurants trying to find some food, including the hotel, it was just, we ended up, I think, at a KFC at like 1 a.m. But we just didn't want the night to end. It was, that energy and that all the songs we know, and just finally meeting everybody, that was an amazing day, and we didn't want it to end.
Because I was doing my post and review a few days later, they gave me access to the press kits of the approved photos. I had to choose which ones didn't have you both in, to be fair, because you were in so blooming many of them.
Can we get those?
No, they were the press kit ones. So I was given a choice of a few out of the batch, but I think I used one of you guys on the site for the review.
I'm sure. And if you're listening and you didn't quite catch it a minute ago, Bob brought it up, that near the end of March, Annie did have a new single come out with called
Alison
Super
Russell.
Love and Alison Russell, and quite an interesting song, quite good actually. I think it's kind of a slow burner.
It has been released before, Mark.
Yeah,
with her husband in the band Birds of Chicago.
And Clem, have you not seen Alison live?
We have seen her live, yeah, Mark. I've actually seen Alison Russell do that song. That song is, it's probably going back close to 15 years.
Yeah.
So to hear it now, with Annie Lennox, oh my God, I was so excited. On iTunes, I'm such a geek. Running over, and I wanted to see where was it on the charts, and in the singer-songwriters, and I think she got as high as maybe 15 at one point. So I was excited. And it's gotten a lot of nice attention. The video has gotten a lot of nice attention on YouTube, and there's that really incredible moment where, oh my God, you sort of lose your breath for a minute, because with the candle and the flame, and it recalls "Here Comes the Rain Again," and the video. It feels so much like that, like we've just been thrown back. Oh my God, I'm having palpitations. Is it 40 years? 41 years for "Here Comes the Rain Again"? Well, 40. Yeah, I don't know if they did it intentionally or not, but in that video, it definitely feels that. It's a moment, an homage, if you will, to "Here Comes the Rain Again."
I'm glad you brought that up, Clem. That was worth saying, because I felt
great
that too.
But again, we go back to just how these last few weeks have been so overwhelming.
Yes.
In the sense of, 3 different concerts, the single that Annie has out with Alison, lots of press, lots of television, newspapers, magazines, all that, and it's been fun and really kind of unexpected. All of this sort of happened, and there wasn't a lot of pre-publicity for it. We didn't know 8 months ago this was happening, and 6 months ago this was happening. I mean, sort of. Well, I guess we did on 6, but I mean, it was quite. It's been quite fun. It's like going back in time a little bit, and like, what, something new? Whoa, wow!
And we still have another new thing coming with the yellow vinyl of the '84. So
and also we have Annie's book.
Right.
Oh, that's
yes, Annie's
really
book. I'm still waiting for the official press release on that.
Yeah. So watch
I have a
this
feeling
space
maybe
on that one.
Clem Burke's death delayed that a little bit.
Well, we should mention that, and I think that's been incredible to see the outpouring of how much people adored him, and how much he fit into Clem Burke, and how much he fit into the Eurythmics world, as well as, of course, Blondie. And I was watching YouTube just last night, the performances from 1986 at the Roxy, the country club, and there's a moment, and the camera stays on Clem Burke for quite several seconds, and and it was just incredible. And he always knew that, and that he had such a connection to Eurythmics going back all the way to In the Garden. And so, there's just lots of things happening last few weeks, and actually being here with all of you is really special too. It really means a lot to me, and I think it does all of you too as well. I hope that, and we talked about it earlier, just all these connections to one another all over the world, and how really special that is. And so it's about the music, and it's about connections. And that's what they've always talked about too, that music is meant to bring people together, and it literally has. Just look right here, and how much it's done. So it's really great.
Well, thanks everybody. We're going to wrap up now. We actually went an hour and almost an hour and a half. So, hey, more fun for your listening pleasure, right?
There we go.
No, thanks, Clem, Ray, Alan, Mark, Bob, all of you, Steve. It was fun.
Rex
What?
and Rex.
Me and myself, yes. No, be fun to do more of these fan ones like this with a whole bunch of fans. It's really interesting, and you get so many different, unique perspectives. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do that in the
You got
future.
to draft some of the folks who are going to be going to Dave's European summer tour. Get
Yeah.
in touch with them and get them. Hey, tell us what
Yeah.
happened.
We'll do
Well,
that.
You can't be
he's-
there.
He's
Yeah,
he's
we're getting to
really
the point now
beginning
where
to.
we need podcast topics. I think we're kind of
Yeah.
like,
He's
we're 31 now, so
he's playing some interesting countries now as well. He's just announced another date, this time in Finland. So
Yeah.
he's really
Finland,
testing the.
Estonia, Latvia,
Yeah.
Poland, Czechoslovakia,
Yeah.
Germany, Switzerland.
Yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. Um,
well, thank you everybody.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Okay, also.
It's been a great time.
Yep, I appreciate you all joining and contributing.
Thank you.
Here.